Welcome to the Have You Heard About podcast. Today, this is very special, very one and only plant lovers episode. Love plants. I've got my little special planty autumny t-shirt on. We've got Steve here, crocodile. Not really anything to do with plants.
Croc friend.
Croc friend. Crocs like plants. Hope you, the listener, likes plants.
I feel like most people do these days. There's a real plant craze at the moment.
Really popular, but I think that's great, and you're going to hear why I think it's great in a hot minute. Maddie, what's like a little teaser for what you're going to be speaking about today?
I guess this is kind of how mine... How do I even... Partly how, like, people who, like, botanists back in the day kind of led to, like, a printing kind of method, revolutionary sort of thing. Ooh. It has having, like, a bit of a resurgence at the moment, so it's very complicated. I really should have picked a simpler topic. But here we are. We're
not here for simple topics. We're here to make interesting and kind of like inaccessible topics.
I feel like mine is very much reminiscent of the TikTok that you just made of like science student who talks about art student who talks about science kind of things. I was just talking about chemicals in mine. I had to look up the names for chemicals because I was like, I don't know what this is and I have to explain it.
Hell yeah, look at these multidisciplinary legends.
Hell yes. So yeah, mine is very loosely related to plants, but it fits the theme, so we're going with it. Because like I don't want to talk about like flower pressing or something, I don't know. So I was like, I gotta think of something interesting that people might not have already heard about. So we'll see.
Excellent, love that. I might just jump straight into it. Let's go. Let's talk about the power of plants and why I think plants are so cool from a scientific perspective, from like a plant lover's perspective. From cottagecore vibes, like I appreciate the aesthetic perspective. Plants are just really freaking awesome, right?
Hell yeah.
We both have got a bit of a plant craze. We went to a garden centre on the weekend and spent more money than we intend to, which happens every time.
Just maybe. Just maybe.
Yeah. One of the coolest things about plants, and we've all heard the word photosynthesis before. I think it's thrown around a lot that everyone's like expected to know what it is.
Yeah, I guess.
But like not necessarily understanding it. I don't know, I thought I'd give a bit of a rundown. So photosynthesis is how plants make food. And they're essentially making sugars through like a simple recipe. Okay? Plants like this lovely snake plant, for example, is like, I'm feeling hungry, better make me classic old photosynthesis cake. What ingredients do I need? I need sunlight, tick, got that, lovely window here. I need water, tick, that's why you gotta water your plants. They do need it to produce food.
Although this one isn't a great example, it can live off of a tiny bit.
Yeah, it's a bit succulent-like. And they need carbon dioxide, which is kind of just in the atmosphere. It's what we breathe out.
Right, yeah.
It's what we're going to be breathing out a lot of during this podcast as we speak. And it takes all those three ingredients and it makes its yummy favourite recipe for plant cake, or photosynthesis cake.
Yum.
Yummy, yummy sugar energy breakfast.
Good dinner.
For the plant. And it just releases oxygen as a byproduct.
Just for our benefit. Just like, here you go.
Yeah, here you go. I wasn't using this bit, and we're like, that's the bit that we need.
We appreciate this very much.
We appreciate that. Which is super good for us. Super good reason to have houseplants in your home, I think.
Oh god, yeah.
Purifies your air a little bit more. Also, you get serotonin from seeing something that you keep alive and happy and green. Outside plants, if you want to plant some plants, contribute to the ecosystem, you know.
Don't just have like a plain lawn with nothing in it. That's not good biodiversity.
Yeah, contribute to biodiversity.
The bees need native plants.
Do it for the bees. If you can't do it for you and for breathing,
do it for the bees.
Do it for the bees. This is a genuine appeal.
Let your yard go wild. That's more fun. It doesn't suit your aesthetic as much, but it's better for the environment.
It is better for the environment.
This is a lawn hate club.
Hate single organism, want more organism. Give me yummy biodiversity.
Yes, please. Also for the native animals like possums, they like native plants, not whatever crap we get from America or whatever.
Yeah, native plants are super important.
Native plants are very important. We need them. Even though huge gum trees are very terrifying in that they can just randomly fall over, like we saw in the recent storms. Anyway, off the topic.
I digress. Going smaller, we've got a bit big scale, okay? We've been biodiversity, that's massive. That's basically everything on the planet contributes to biodiversity, every living thing. What's, like, the smallest living thing?
I was gonna say it's a big question. What's the smallest living thing is a big question. What, like, tiny little, like, microorganism thing?
Yeah, so, like, in terms of, like, functionality, right?
Yeah.
A cell is one of, like, the basic functional units of life. Every living thing is either a single cell, so you can have single cell organisms, like little bacteria and everything, And they are just one single cell that sometimes has like a tail and it moves around like that.
I've never understood them. Like, how is one cell also one thing?
Because
you need lots of cells to become a big thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the smallest organizational unit of life.
Okay.
Is cells. So everything is either a single cell organism or, like us, it's made up of so many cells. We have so many cells in our body doing every single task that we need to function and be a human, which if you want to have an existential crisis, just think about how every part of your personality, every part of your being, every part of your lung to your big toe, it's all made up of cells.
It sure is. I hate that.
Yeah.
So much.
I wasn't meant to go there.
But here we are.
I found out today, I'd probably heard this before, but it's never stuck, that cell comes from the Latin word cella, which means small room. So now I'm just thinking of like my cells as little tiny office rooms. And like the nucleus is like the boss and it's like, hey, I got the DNA instructions, go do this task.
I was just thinking like the SpongeBob episodes where he's trying to remember like a word and he's got like a little office building in his head of tiny SpongeBobs who are like, what's the word? Or like, have we got a name? He's like, what's this guy's name? Like looking through files. There's just lots of tiny office spaces of smaller use.
And now that's how I'm going to think of all my cells.
Congrats, you're welcome.
I ruined it for myself. And okay, so we've been talking pretty big picture. Like cells make up every little tiny things make up every single part of our body. But
small babies.
It's not the same type of cells. Like cells specialize, they do different tasks. Like the cells in your hearts and your organs aren't necessarily the same cells that are like, brain cell, this is what I want for lunch. Like every cell kind of has a special different task. There are apparently 220 different cells just found in like a human embryo. Like different cell types. I
didn't need to know that.
Well, now you know.
Thanks.
Have you heard about the 220 cells in human embryos? So, they're...
I was thinking before they're fertilized, like on their own or after they're fertilized?
No, during fertilized.
Okay.
And then there are also like cells that make up the placenta, but that's like a whole other kettle of fish.
Alright.
But essentially, the coolness of cells lies in their potency. So cell potency is not how stinky it is, like how stinky a smell is. Because that's when I think of potency, I think of like stinky smells. But it's the ability of stem cells to become more specialized. So we've heard of stem cells. They're kind of like these wonder cells that can become almost any cell. And that's really important in terms of medicine for humans. And it will come back to plants. But first I'll explain to you kind of like the 3 different tiers of potency for cells.
Okay.
So top tier, God tier. We have
S tier.
Totipotency, which I think of like as total potential. Or these are also called like omnipotent cells.
Yeah, because I was trying to Google this because we talked about this briefly when we were planning it. And I looked up omnipotent cells and just came up with God. Like omnipotent. And I was like, I think I got the wrong word.
No, because they're using totipotency with omnipotent in brackets. Maybe because omnipotent related too much to God and they were like, this is just biology. we don't want to touch that. So totipotent or omnipotent cells, they can give rise to the 220 different types of cells.
Okay.
Plus those found in the placenta. So they kind of are the god, like, of stem cells. They're like, I can do it all.
I guess that kind of makes sense. That's just wild to me.
Yeah, so that's god tier. And then we have, like, medium god tier, which I would still say is god tier, is pluripotent cells. And these can give rise to all types of body cells. So just not things in the placenta, but basically everything, pluripotency guy.
So still things that are helpful.
Yeah.
Just not everything.
Just not absolutely everything, but pretty much everything. Pretty much everything when you're an adult is pluripotent. And then there's multipotent cells, and that's kind of like the low-ranking tiers of these guys, but they're all kind of legendary Pokemon, is how I'd view them.
Okay.
It's just that, like, we've got, like, Mewtwo and Mew1, and then we've got, like...
every other Pokemon.
Every other legendary. Don't come for me, Pokemon fans.
But is Arceus, like, the S-tier omnipotent cell then?
Who knows? Oh, maybe that's what we're chasing in terms of like human medicine. We want to find that.
But right now we've got Mewtwo.
Right now we've got Mewtwo, which is pretty good. I'll settle for Mewtwo.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, so most multipotent cells are kind of like the low ranking tier. They can give rise to different cell types, but they have to kind of be like within the same lineage.
Okay.
So like an analogy I was thinking of was like you go to a store and you're like, chicken. I fancy chicken today. And it's multipotent cells store. And it's like, I can do chicken. But then you go to the same store and you're like, I just want like some veggies. And it's like, we only do chicken. I don't know how to explain to you that I can only make you a chicken sandwich.
We just have chicken.
And you're like, but you got veggies. No. Only chicken.
I can give you nuggies, but that's about it.
Yeah. So multipotent cells, we love them, we stan. You just can't do as much as pluripotent.
Okay.
And you're probably thinking, Ella, why did you explain all of this? Like, this is interesting. It doesn't have anything to do with plants at this specific moment. You went on a Pokemon tangent. Wasn't anticipating that. Honestly, that kind of was spontaneous. And plants are really cool. And this time I'm going to tie it together. Plants are really cool because unlike humans, when we have issues with our organs, we can't make a new one.
No, not really.
Like, if it gets really dire, sometimes we just need a transplant. So we take somebody else's one organ they've grown and then we put that organ in us. Because we can't fix it.
And even, like, your appendix can just randomly explode if it wants to.
I hate that so much.
Our organs aren't the best.
They aren't the best. We've got a really fascinating and elegant body system, I would say. There are definitely flaws in it. Flaws in these plans.
Yep.
And, like, we can do, like, a little bit of repair, but, like, when an organ is damaged, there isn't a lot we can do if it's really dire. Unlike plants, because plants are so epic, and they have so many pluripotent cells, like Mu level cells, god tier, but not like god tier cells, that they can create new organs and other like critical body structures. And they can, through this, they're kind of like immortal to some of the things that humans are most mortal to. Like, I would say organ failure is a really, really big killer for us. And that's something that plants don't even have to worry about. They're like, oh no, ruptured my plant spleen. Guess I'll just make a new one because I can.
Just because.
Yeah. So we've heard of, like, stem cells, and plants kind of have their own version of stem cells. It's called... Well, they have stem cells, but there's this one thing called a Mary stem. Like, kind of like Mary's in, like, Christmas. It's...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. M-E-R-I. So,
okay.
Not Y, but... Yeah, Mary stems. Think of it, happy stems. It's really cool.
Meryl Streep stems.
Meryl Streep is in every single plant.
It's because of how her variety, her range as an actress.
She's got the range, darling.
She's got the range, darling.
So these are kind of like control centers for plant stem cells.
Okay.
And they will allow, these guys are kind of like head honcho, they can allow pretty much any changes to be made as long as the shoot is at the top of the plant and the roots are at the bottom.
Okay.
And that's not even like cemently true, like you can't change. If you need roots here, but your like roots are here, if a root comes, basically Mary stem is like a long line.
Okay.
And then this bit is shoot, this bit is stem. If you want a stem here, you can just grow something from here out. To a stem, but all the stems should come from like the bottom bit, or the shoot bit should come from the top.
Okay.
And basically within that range, Mary stem will be like, oh, you need a new plant organ over there? Here's the hormones you need to make it, and also I will like divide and let you have some of these new...
So is that how like some plants can like give each other nutrients and kind of like spreads? Like I've heard that like trees can like connect roots and like spread nutrients to each other and stuff.
I have been meaning to read, there's a book called Secret Life of Trees that explains that. And I don't understand it, but I really want to because it sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that as a future episode. Check in with our podcast later. Maybe we'll do one on the Secret Life of Trees. You're going to have to think of something else to talk about with plants. I know it's a hard one.
I'll try my best.
So Mary stem is kind of like where the most specialized plant cells come from. And relevant for people who like houseplants, people who like to take cuttings. You know, you take your little cutting of a plant, you put it in water and it roots, right?
So that's why it does that.
Yeah, so Mary stem recognizes, creates and regulates hormones and cells to make the roots grow to keep the plant alive. Because basically, you've taken a plant cutting, you've taken away its roots, which is what it needs to live, and you put it in some water. So you've given it the conditions it needs to root. But without the Mary stem, it wouldn't.
Okay.
But you've got the Mary stem in there. The Mary stem is like, hang on, where'd my roots go? And then it's like, oh, duh, I can fix this. It's like a problem-solving machine.
Hell
it's
yeah.
like, here you go, make some roots, and then the plant does.
Wild.
Now, obviously, every houseplant doesn't root. Every plant you take won't. A lot of them will, and it's magical to watch. I've got heaps growing at, like, my kitchen counter at home. We put, spring onion stems back in water so they grow some more. Life hacks. Free food.
Hell yeah.
But basically, you have to make sure you get, like, a part of the Mary stem, which is why with plant cuttings that come out like this, sometimes they don't have the Mary stem in it. So sometimes you need it from, like, the main stem of the plant.
Okay.
So different plants function in different ways. But essentially, if you get bits of the Mary stem and the axim, which is like the growth hormone, kind of like regulator or like control hub, then you can pretty much grow anything in any plant in water for a period of time.
Yeah.
Because if you keep plants in water alone, there are some that really love it, some that will thrive on it. The thing you got to remember is that putting like plants in water, like the plant has to grow somehow, and there is not that much nutrients in water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Though plants need water to root, they need oxygen to grow, and when you put them in water, you're kind of depriving them of the heady oxygen that we get out in the atmosphere. that they, do need to survive in.
Yes.
So they can take out our carbon dioxide and pump out more oxygen for them to survive in.
So, like, in theory, where would, like, the meristem be in this plant?
I think the meristem would be here.
Okay.
And because I don't think it's in the leaf offshoots. I think it would be...
like, in the base kind of thing.
In the base, where everything comes out of. So it's sending up these shoots, and it's sending down the roots.
For context, this is a snake plant, for anyone who either don't know what this is or can't see it because they're listening.
Yeah, and I hope that's correct, but if it's not, I'll make a TikTok about it.
Exactly.
And go through it more. But I think it's really fun. And if you want to learn more about your houseplants, maybe think about kind of like where the control center meristem would be. Like, where do all the shoots come from? Where do all the roots come from? That's the bit that in cuttings you want to take to make sure that your plant will survive and not just, like, be a leaf that dies.
Yeah. This is both interesting and makes me depressed because it's like, wow, some of my plants could just have survived if I had looked after them properly.
Yeah.
They've got so much going for them and I still managed to kill some of them.
Well, that's the thing, right? Plants have so much going for them, but they also are really susceptible to disease, or if you don't give them the right type of sunlight, houseplants are like spoiled brats and will just die sometimes.
Meanwhile, there's a daisy just growing out of cement. It's like, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong here.
The duality of plants. But yeah, those are some reasons that I think plants are really cool. Buy more houseplants.
Hell yeah.
Is the takeaway from this. Or if you can't, ask your houseplant friends to give you a cutting. If you explain to them how to take a cutting, or maybe you can learn together.
Just go to Bunnings and just take ones you find on the ground.
That is stealing.
It's a little bit stealing. But what are they going to do with it?
Screw capitalism. Steal plants.
They don't need it.
They don't need plants.
It's on the ground.
Mm.
Just take it.
Yeah, but make sure it's got a meristem. Or if you don't know and it doesn't root, it probably didn't have the things it needed to root, so don't beat yourself up about it.
You gave it a go, but you're missing the key ingredient.
Yeah, you're missing the key ingredient. Just like photosynthesis cakes, right? No good if you don't have any sunlight. Plant can't make good sugars if no sunlight.
It is true.
Didn't follow the cake recipe correctly. Didn't get any yummy sugar. We didn't get any oxygen. Yeah, so make sure you give your plants sunlight.
They all come with instructions.
They do come with instructions. Read your plant care instructions. They're very helpful.
I often misplace mine because they don't look aesthetic with my planters. So I've just started keeping them because I've learned that I just need the instructions with me. Because I make mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody has those days.
Everybody knows what you're talking about. What are you talking about, Maddie?
What I'm talking about is cyanotype.
Ooh.
Yeah,
blue?
so... yeah, blue. So you may have seen this on TikTok because that's probably why I'm talking about, because it's had a bit of a resurgence on TikTok. So basically, I have to get my notes up for this because it's just so... It's
so wild?
It's complicated and not complicated. It's complicated to my brain. But the reason it's popular is because it's actually very simple.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a printing method that makes blue photographs, hence cyanotype.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like a little bit of debate around whether it's photography or printing as a form.
Okay, exciting.
So like, but it's kind of agreed that it's photography because it was created to replicate photography.
Okay.
Because back in the 1800s, there were like a few different methods being invented by Louis Daguerre and Henry Fox Talbot. And so they created photography and they like released their findings to the public and like showed people how they did it. But there's one guy called Sir John Herschel was like, I'll just try to do it myself. He's like, I'll just recreate it. I'll do it the hard way and not just read their instructions.
I see your end product and I've decided to do it different.
Basically, he's like, I'll just do it myself. Because he was a scientist, so he was like, I can do this. It'll be fine. And so,
ego.
Literally. And so he created a new version through chemicals. So like, how do I even explain this? So like the main it uses two chemicals you have to combine. So the chemicals are potassium ferrocyanide, not the thing that kills you. It's got cyanide in it. And ferric ammonium citrate. So you get so I don't know anything about these chemicals.
Okay. Sounds complicated.
Yeah, so you have these two chemicals, you combine them together, and then you paint them on some surface that you want in the dark, because the thing is the chemicals react to sunlight. And so you paint them in the dark, like the surface is dry, and then once you expose them to sunlight, they turn kind of like a greeny blue, but then you put them in like just regular water, and in like a couple of minutes, it's like turns bright blue.
Okay,
It's wild. And so what you can do is you can like, because it uses sun to print things, like a photography, like, you know, like using light and whatever, you can put like negatives on there, that you can get from actual cameras. So you can take a photo with your camera, print off a negative onto like transparency film, put it on the paper, and so the sun will shine onto it, and so that part will stay white because it's not been exposed to the sun. And so then when you wash it, it creates like a negative positive thing where like there's like it creates light with the white bits and whatever. So it's very hard to explain. I'm not a photography person.
That's sick.
Yeah, and so like people were printing things that way. And so as long as you cover up part of it from the sun, that part won't turn blue.
So the sun like bleaches the parts that aren't covered.
Yeah, so it's like the things that aren't covered will turn blue. So like this is the paper, this is the negative. So if this was covered in cyanotype and it was exposed to the sun, all of this would be blue.
Yeah.
And if I just like put one finger there, this would be white when you finish it. So
Okay.
you leave it in the sun for like 15 minutes and then you put it in the water for like 1 minute and then you just have like a line there and that would be white. So it's cool.
Nice.
And so the way this ties into plants.
Tell me.
I'll get up her name because I cannot remember. Just make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Oh yeah, it's like just another point, like so like, it doesn't technically involve a camera because you can just put anything you want on the paper, but most people would use it by taking a photo with a camera and then putting the negative on it. So it's like photography but not. It's like depending on how you use it, it's a photography thing because you could photograph like technically my finger, like that would be a photograph in a way, or it's like a printing method when you've already taken a photo. So it wasn't really used for traditional photography in 1800s because it was just like this weird niche method that nobody
It's kind of like an
really
extra
used.
step.
Yeah, it's like, here's a thing you can do. But the main person who decided to use this was a woman called Anna Atkins, and she kind of pioneered using it for botanical purposes.
Whoa.
Which is how this ties into plants. And so she's also credited as the first woman to take a photograph.
Really?
Which is super cool.
Through this technique that we're not quite sure is...
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because she was family friends with Herschel, and so he introduced her to it, and she was a botanist, and she was trying to like record different types of algae. And it's very hard to draw things like algae and like really detailed ferns. And if you're just a scientist and you're not super into art, you're like, I don't want to have to like record them. How am I going to do this?
I just want to study them. I don't want to draw.
Yeah, it's like, just let me break down the thing. I don't want to have a photo of it.
This is why we need multidisciplinary people.
Exactly. And so what she did was she would press the different plants that she was studying so they were flat, and then she would place them on top of the cyanotype to make like a negative image of it.
Yeah.
Which is like super cool. And like depending on how transparent the fern was or whatever, you could like see the different details of the lines and stuff. Because depending on how long you expose it for, it'll have different levels. So if you do it for a long time, it'll be like a completely white silhouette. But if you do it for just a couple of minutes or like a little bit less, you can like include the kind of transparent aspects of it because light penetrates only for a little bit. So like petals, we can see all the different lines in them, and it's really cool. And so it looks really interesting because it's just this completely blue surface with like these white images. And so it almost looks like an X-ray of a plant.
Oh my god, that's sick.
I'll get up a photo to show you. Maybe we can put one on the video or something. Because they look wild. But yeah, they're kind of like this.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
They're so pretty.
I love that.
Beautiful.
They take details in really well.
They really do, because it's like this one, you can see like all the different kind of levels of it.
Yeah.
Because some parts are thinner than others. But yeah, and so it was really interesting because she used them for that scientific kind of method. And she also published the first book to have photographs in it.
No way!
Because she published all her findings.
What an absolute legend.
I love her so much. It's like so cool.
What's her name again?
Anna Atkins.
Anna Atkins.
Yeah, and so she published all of her findings, and so she had all of these copies of all of these like plants that she had studied and released them all in these books, which is like so cool. I was like, this is the first like photography book.
That's so
and
sick.
It's just a bunch of plants. It was like it's a photograph but not, which is really weird.
I wonder if photography students get taught this.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Because yeah, she learned it from Herschel, and she also like talked to the other guy who invented photography, Talbot. She talked to him as well about it, so that she could get more ideas on how to do it. And so she kind of drew inspiration from them and like used it for her own purposes rather than actual photographs. But the other thing is that a lot of amateurs used it, because the thing is, it's a very simple process, very easy to get the materials. It's environmentally friendly.
Love that.
And so people kind of use it as like a testing method for like trying out photographs. So they take their negatives and they test it on cyanotype first before their actual ones to make sure that like all the exposures are right and stuff. And so like most cyanotypes that you'll see in history are from like college students and stuff.
Oh my god.
Because that was just what was affordable for them and like what they could use to test out their assignments and things.
That's sick.
And so it's a very like amateur kind of method. But then, this is
Tell me.
the thing that like really blew my mind because I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah.
Engineers started using it because what they would do is they would draw up their diagrams for like building stuff they had to build and whatever, and they wanted like multiple copies of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would just they draw in like transparency film, put it on the cyanotype, and then just make several copies of it, which is where blueprints come from.
Could feel that coming, and I love that so much.
I was like, that makes so much sense. Blueprint. But yeah, and so like they literally, that's where it comes from. I never thought about that, but it's literally just, they literally just printed it onto blue chemicals because that was like the easiest like photocopying method back in the day.
This is such like a STEM thing.
I know.
That's incredible.
I was reading this and I was like, how did I manage to pick something that I thought was just art and now it's like more so just science and like things in general?
I think that really speaks to just like how multidisciplinary all the good things in life are.
Yeah.
And having like a team of people, like if she didn't speak to both the other photographers, printmakers, people who like developed it, and if it wasn't accessible for college students and they wouldn't experiment with it, like, oh, I love it. Makes me so excited. I
know, right? It's just so cool. I think I remember what I talk about next, but I'm just make sure I don't forget anything. Why is my phone panicking now?
It's just panicking because you've blown its mind.
True. It's like, don't let me scroll.
Oh.
Look, she'll be right. So like, the main way that I found out about this was from TikTok, because it's kind of having a bit of a resurgence, because like everyone was getting into different hobbies and quarantine and stuff.
Yeah.
And so everyone was getting into it because like it's affordable, it's, you know, environmentally friendly because it doesn't involve silver and like all the different chemicals you usually use for like traditional photography.
Okay.
Because this is just chemicals, the sun, and paper, and then you're fine. And so I think like the main thing you have to keep in mind is you have to like dispose of the chemicals properly, like you have to dilute it and then throw it out because apparently it can be bad otherwise.
Okay.
But that's like the only like tedious part of the process.
And everything else is just real fun.
Yeah, and like you can print on whatever you want. And so people have been printing like flowers onto t-shirts and like big tablecloths and sheets. And I've seen people even use like packaging that they're just recycling, and so they get like random transparent packaging, print it onto paper, so there's like different like McDonald's logos and stuff.
As I say, like, this sounds like so cool and indie, and I really want to try this. And then, would you like some capitalism with that?
Basically.
Branding.
But yeah, it's like trying to recycle any kind of material that you can find that could print well. I even saw someone on TikTok literally just lie down on like a tablecloth for a long time, and she was wearing like a sheer dress, and so it like kind of like printed out the forms of her dress as well.
Whoa.
It was so cool.
That's incredible.
Like, you can be so creative with it. So as long as it's transparent in some way, it doesn't even have to be, but like it helps if it's transparent because it adds more dimension to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so everyone's been doing this. They've been like using these different pressed flowers, and you can reuse things as well.
Yeah.
And so they'll just use pressed flowers over and over and over again to make different patterns, and it's just so cool. I love it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, and so like even though it started out as like a photography thing, it was then very influential in its use in the botanical world. And it's now having a resurgence in that sense because everyone has access to plants. And so they're like, I'll just press some flowers, chuck it on. Cool, it looks great. It doesn't even have to be pressed, it can be just regular flowers.
Yeah.
But then you have to kind of worry about like shadows and stuff. But yeah, so like it's kind of done a bit of a circle in terms of like, it started out as a photography thing.
Arts to science to arts to science to arts again.
Because it was photography, and then it was for botany, and then students were using it for photography. Then it was for engineering.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of gone back to the everyday person wanting to use it just to make pretty things.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool because it's just weirdly versatile even though it's kind of limiting.
I mean,
like,
it kind of makes sense. Like, you're making something aesthetic, but like how you're doing it is like a scientific process, or making use of what we know about the world, which is what science is. And I'm going to come back to this every time. Science is a fairy tale. It's how we best understand the world now, and it can change. But it's beneficial for us to make use of it. It's beneficial for us to know, like, oh, the fairy tellers don't go near that lake because people drown. There's a monster there, but you know not to go near the lake, right? And it's just beneficial for us to know what we know about science to then put that to good use to enjoy the world the best we can.
Hell yeah. Because, like, at the end of the day, most, like, materials that you use as an artist come from science in some way. It's, like, different paints that have different chemicals and then will have different effects. And so it's, like, you know, like, resin's a big thing now, and, like, that's a whole bunch of chemicals and stuff, and you gotta look after those a certain way. And
Circular.
So it's like, even if you're super into art, you'll still probably learn a bunch of sciencey things along the way because most things involve some form of scientific thing or technology thing. Like, if you want to be a graphic designer, you end up learning coding because you have to make a website. Like, you end up just dipping your toe in a lot of different waters.
Yeah. I think that's the way things should be.
It really should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so pretty. I just like was scrolling through it for ages because I was like, I'll research for the podcast, and I just looked on the hashtag for ages. It's like, these are so pretty. This is so fun.
I love it. Maybe our new logo should be cyan print.
That's such a really good idea. I love that. That like good blending of.
Hello,
science and
Mr.
art.
Chemical Man. I would like to buy all of them
Yes,
to make
good.
the prints.
Because the good thing is now you can just get like pre-packaged bottles of like, here is the first bit of the solution, here's the second bit, combine, there you go. Rather than having to buy like weird tubs of things.
Nice.
So also just like, here you go, here's the thing.
I love convenience.
We love it. It's very helpful.
Very convenient.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so cool.
I love that.
I just love the degenerate blueprints because I didn't see it coming, and then I was like, it's so goddamn obvious. Why didn't I think of that?
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's just, it ends up in all these different fields for different reasons. It's just awesome.
So what did we learn today? Have houseplants.
Have houseplants.
Take cuttings from houseplants and grow them. If cutting don't work, cyan print them. You've still got a nice cutting to work with.
As long as it's not too shriveled up,
Yeah.
it'll be a good time.
That's true art though.
Yeah.
Represents my inner demon.
It represents self-care and why you need to look after yourself and have the key ingredients and bleh.
It represents that there wasn't a Mary stem involved in this cutting. The right hormones went there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild. Plants are great.
Plants are great. In conclusion, plants are great.
Buy some.
Buy some.
Do some weird printing methods. Whatever you're interested in.
Enjoy yourself.
Just experiment. Have a good time.
Enjoy yourself. And while you're enjoying yourself, give us some feedback. We want to know, did you enjoy this episode of
Did you
Have You Heard That
understand it?
podcast? Did you understand it? And also, this is our second episode now. Which did you prefer? Do you enjoy it when we talk about kind of like the more social human aspect side of things? Or did you enjoy this kind of like delve into plant territory, not really talking about humans as specifically, but kind of like in that like cottagecore area? Let us know what you think, and we'll make our third episode around that, which I think is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it should be a good time.
Audience participation time, but it's not scary.
Because it doesn't involve getting up in front of people.
Leave a comment, we'll do a poll.
TikTok message.
DM us. DM us if you've done cyan printing. Send us pictures of your houseplants.
Just send us pictures of the plants. Love it. We'll send pictures of our plants.
We'll put pictures of our plants.
Plant tour.
Plant tour.
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us on this lovely episode number 2, and we will see you next time.